Hi, I'm Jules and welcome to episode 6 of the Honest Designer Diaries. And this is a podcast where we talk about what it's actually like to be a designer. The good bits, the messy bits, the stuff that we keep to ourselves or that we only share with our nearest and dearest designer friends. And today I'm joined by Ross and we are talking about facing redundancy not once, not twice, but 3 times and his journey into freelance.
Hi Ross, thank you so much for coming on to chat with me today. We met very, very recently, but already in that first meeting we were having quick chats about the ups and downs of freelance life and also working and facing redundancy and stuff, which is I think what we're going to talk about. But why don't you go ahead and say hello, who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Hi, Julie. So I'm Ross and I am a freelance graphic designer at Grubb Creative. I also have our co-host monthly networking group called Scottish Creative Network with my friend Greg. And yeah, we met there at the Scottish Creative Network when you were coming along to see. And yeah, it was great catching up with you. And thank you for inviting me onto the podcast.
You're welcome. I've followed you guys for a while on LinkedIn and on socials, and it always kept clashing. I couldn't quite get to one, but I'm really pleased I got to that event because I'm making a conscious effort to try and get out to more creative networking events. I think that's what I've really been missing, and I know we're going to touch on that in our chat today. A lot of the networks events I went to in the past were more like business led, so a mixture of different businesses to try and get work at them, but realised through now working on my own that I miss being beside other creatives and just bouncing ideas off people, and
Yep.
even just the wee chats I had that night with people at your event.
You
And
need
Chloe, I
it.
ended up car on the way home having a good chat and stuff. I know Chloe's one of your very good friends as well. But
Yeah.
you are now freelancing and you've had your business how many years now?
It's actually crazy. 2.5 years I've been freelancing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not something, if you told me 2.5 years ago I'd be freelancing, I would have thought it might have just been like a short-term fix until I got a job. But yeah, I don't know if I can go back to employment now because I love being freelance. So yeah.
And I think that's the thing. Sometimes I think freelancing is viewed as a stopgap or that
Yeah.
little between jobs. It's not seriously a career, but more and more designers now are actually purposely choosing to be freelance and to go
Yeah.
freelance. And I think a big part of that is you're no less secure in a job than you are freelancing now. And that's,
Yeah.
I know, as we discussed, you found, because you've been a designer for how many years now?
Nah. So it's actually 10 years this year. I graduated from Douglas Jordanstown in Dundee, which is crazy to think. But yeah, 10 years I've been like from graduating, I've been professionally doing it. And I was dabbling in like little freelance projects and stuff as a student and doing internships and whatnot. But yeah, at the start of my career, I was working in travel. So I had 2 travel jobs and then I had within the private healthcare. And yeah, as you mentioned, like it is kind of like the security of jobs whenever things go, like that's when redundancies can happen. And like I've noticed as well, there is a lot more designers going freelance as well, which is interesting to see that shift.
Yeah, it is. Because, I mean, in your 10 years, how many times did you face redundancy?
So four jobs since, I don't want to say this to scare anybody off, but 4 jobs.
No, it's the reality of life.
Yeah, like it's just the way it's been. It's been my journey, but 4 jobs since graduating and 4 times up for redundancy, 3 times been made redundant. And it has just been like the second job that I was in, I loved. It was in travel, but shit hit the fan when COVID came along,
Of
and
course,
travel
yeah.
was the first thing to be affected by it because everything just shut down. So
Yeah.
it happened really quite quickly. And like as you said, like freelance could be almost seen as like a sort of stopgap. And I did a bit of freelancing during that time. Very naive to it at that time. I was charging stupid per hour, but at that time I was like, maybe even if this gets me something until I get a proper job or
Yeah.
like a full-time job or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, during that time it was just kind of like dabbling in it. And then I ended up getting employment in the private healthcare sector. And again, it was jobs that I really enjoyed doing. Like I learned a lot. I worked with some amazing people, like managers, a lot of them that I still keep in touch with today that I learned so much from that I saw as like my mentors at the time as well. So I think that really sort of helped me within the sort of 4 years after being made redundant that time, that I was like more set up to go freelance when it actually happened again when I was made redundant last. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh. And that's the thing. There's like each time it happens, I think it makes you a bit more wary than the next
Mhm.
role you're for. Always in the back of your mind, you're thinking it's a job for now, but
Yes.
what happens if this happens again? And especially when you moved across different sectors, it's not even like you stayed working in design in the same sector. There's travel and then now medical and things like that. So it's completely different industries, but you
Yeah.
still face the same issues. And I myself, like, I was really lucky in the first part of my career when I was in a design agency. I was there 9 years before I ended up leaving after having my first baby, had my daughter. And I'd initially went back part time, but then realised I can't keep up this pace of agency
Yeah.
life. And where I worked was like 50 miles away. So I drove,
Right.
it was over an hour. So I live in just outside of town, Glasgow, but it was Ayr where the agency was.
Yeah.
So that's not a great drive. And this is pre M77 days, so it was still the old Aero
We work
days.
from home days as well. Like that's one of the benefits we've had from lockdown is being able to work more remotely.
Exactly, and at that point in time, remote working just wasn't invented yet. It
Yeah.
didn't exist. It didn't have the same setup and things. And so I loved the job, but I had to leave. But when I worked in house for 12 years, and that was civil service. Now that should be very secure. I faced not so much the word redundancy wasn't used, but
Yeah.
the word restructure was used a lot.
Yeah. That's
Um,
the stuff to make it so to smoke in the blow, I think, is when that
yeah, and I saw, and we were a tiny team, and when I was there 12 years, but actually the last 6 years I was there, 5, 6 years I was there, we went through 4 restructures,
Mhm.
like massive full organizational restructures. And I had to then, as the head of design, do reports to prove our worth. And that's literally what it was
Yeah.
basically, how much does your team cost? What are your salaries? What are you, how per head per year? How much work do you produce? And I remember, and luckily because I had the experience of, and as an agency, I often done proposals, costed the jobs and things like that. So I was very used to doing that. So, and one of my team members as well works at agencies. So two of us literally sat down and were like, right, okay, we're going to show them. We're going to show how much work our wee mighty team of 3 produced in here. And when we counted it all up and priced it as an agency, and we included the extra because in-house you never got the text fully signed off. There was always changes. There was always change directions that we absorbed time-wise, but there was no cost implications to the organisation. So they had no idea what an agency would charge for that. So we included all that. And we were like £750,000 or something like that. And we were in 3 daft wee salaries. So although I could show it very effectively, you would literally, I always remember there was one person who was purposely brought in. It was the last restructure and it was the worst one. And they walked in and she almost took glee from getting rid of people. Like and it was quite evil. And she
Yeah.
would fly from London and strut her way through the Glasgow office and come up to her desk and going, what are you busy on? And because always I felt I had a creative role, it wasn't taken as seriously
Yeah.
as the policy people and the lawyers and the comms and all that kind of stuff. Like we were the creatives, so we were the flighty ones that
It's
we could
massively
easily
overlooked, isn't it?
outsource.
Yeah.
Aha. So you're always trying to kind of prove your worth. And that was probably a big decider for me to
Yeah.
start being more in control, because I think I had that awful moment of sitting one day doing this whole cost thing and exercise going, if I get made redundant right now, I have been out of the agencies for 10 years. I have no contacts in the Glasgow design industry anymore.
Yeah.
I've not had a client for 10 years. How do I even start? Like
Yeah.
going freelance, it seems really big and scary. And I ended up at the staff conference that's down in London. I was in this wee hotels, one of those wee capsule hotels,
Yeah.
a tiny room. It's actually quite a cute room. And I started an Instagram and I just started to post daft wee graphics I was creating because I'd no work. I thought, no portfolio. And I don't
Yeah.
think I wanted somebody else to have control over my future anymore. And you probably feel the same when you face redundancy. Somebody else is determining your worth and your future.
Yeah. It's it's one of these, like you're saying, with like when it comes to like costing yourself and like having to prove your worth and also being the creatives, like it is like one of these things where when there is these restructures happening, it's like they overlook the marketing department and we're the ones that are your
Okay.
first point of contact with your consumers. So like remember we are the ones that keep the light on when like basically saying like we're here, like this is what our business
Yeah.
does. So it definitely is unfortunately overlooked when it comes to the restructuring. And like I went through having to sit with HR and re-interview for my job. And I remember the first time when it happened, I had just like got a mortgage offer and I was like buzzing for that. And I was like buzzing to move
God.
into a flat and everything. And then I was like, shit, like now I'm
Oh,
like on this edge where it took me long enough to get a job. Like it took me a good few months to get a job after I graduated. And I was like, I'm going to have to do this all over again. So
yeah.
and then I thought as well, being first, like last in, I'd be first out. And I remember having like this weird sort of survivor's guilt when I was actually kept on the first time. And I was just like,
Yeah.
why me? Like, but yeah, it is one of these things. And like you said as well, it's like showing like to people like or sort of controlling your own destiny that way as well. Like once you sort of decide that you're going freelance, it's like, okay, this won't ever happen to me again. Yes, I might dry up on work, but it's then on me to put myself out there and be my own marketing team to prove what I'm doing. So
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because it reminds me when I was new in my in-house role, I initially started off on a 3-month contract. And at that time, I'd been out of design about 2 years because I'd briefly had another business. I had a wedding stationery business for about 4 years when my daughter was a baby and stuff. And I thought, well, this is a way for me to be at home with my baby, but still earning money and having a business. And I absolutely loved it. Could not make money at it. And I tried for like 3 years to get off the ground and it just wasn't happening. So and I had my son and I remember sitting, oh my God, I was like heavily, heavily pregnant and I was due and I was like trying to finish up orders and I was like basically making, it was all handmade stuff like that was the trend
yeah,
like 20 odd years ago. And sitting on the living room floor making these cards, telling the bump, please don't come because I don't have time
right.
for you to come yet. You cannot come yet because I need to finish this order. And like then it came 5 days late, thank God. My house got all the orders. The end of August. And I'm like, this is prime wedding season. I didn't plan the pregnancy very well at all. And then basically my marriage broke up very suddenly, very abruptly. Husband walked in one day. I don't even mind I've said this only before. Husband walked in one day, went, don't want to be married to you anymore.
Oh,
And I'm like, oh, what do I do now? And we'd been together like 18 years. A baby. I had a baby
yeah,
and a 4-year-old. And it was the very first time I hadn't been in work. He left at the moment where I had no job. How do I get a job? How do you get back into it? And I seen this
yeah,
job advert and it was a 3-month contract and it was back in Glasgow. And I thought, if I get this,
mm,
I can get home, can get my kids back home, know how just get back to my family and all that kind of stuff. And it was just like something came over me. I contacted my old boss. I worked with an agency, still a really good friend of mine. Contacted my cousin who also had a design agency in Glasgow. And I'm like that, right guys, I've not done a CV for 10 years, help me. So the two of them were like helping me get my CV together. And I think I just walked in that door thinking, I need this job in the
yep,
January. And I got that job. And that 3-month contract then went on to turn into a year's contract. And then that year turned into another year's contract. And there was no permanent roles at that point because there was like a kind of recruitment freeze. So they couldn't hire permanent roles. But this was my first time working, one in-house, but second in civil service. And then I was a year into the job and still under my kind of second contract when I got pulled in one day. And I was the only person up in Glasgow. And I was also working with the Glasgow team. But there was a bigger team in London. There was another designer there who ironically wasn't very friendly to me, wouldn't work with me, wouldn't share any of her files, wouldn't share any of her assets, all that. And again, this is something I'd never came across.
that
And I'm like,
first,
what do you mean you don't want to be my pal? I'm there. And I didn't know the background with the role and why I was hired to work in the Glasgow office and stuff, but there was obviously political
yeah,
manoeuvrings happening in the background that I was oblivious of, and I'm just rolled up going, hiya.
I need a job.
Yeah, but but as part of these whole like movements within the teams and stuff like that, I walked in one morning and they were basically like, "You need to go into this meeting, this video call. You're joining up with the London communications team," and I'm like, "Oh, right, okay." And then my boss walked in with a bit of paper, and it was a new team structure.
Uh,
I was like,
yes,
what's this? So then I was moved from the Glasgow team that I worked with to part of the London team. And I was like, oh crap, right, okay. And also, I didn't know any of them. And immediately the director was saying, don't worry, there's 12 of us in this room. There's 12 roles on this team structure. Nobody's losing their job, was what he said. And I'm immediately scanning it and I'm looking and I'm like, there's one design position.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's also, so in the civil service, you get pay grades, and it was also
Yeah.
a pay grade above what I was on. And immediately in my head, I thought, the two of us are going to be up for this, going for the same job, immediately competing for the same job. And everyone had to apply for roles again. And he said, but you're not just stuck to applying for the job you're currently doing. You could apply for a different job if it's in the comms team if you want.
I was confused well when I faced that, because I was like, no, I don't want to go and work in another department or do sales. That's not my skill set. Like, yes, it might save me from losing a salary, but I would be miserable. I wouldn't be trained to do the job, so there's no point in even considering it. So it's a weird scenario, isn't it, that way?
So weird, because in my head I'm thinking, I don't know anything about comms. And although design functions that in comms, I don't know anything about comms. I don't know how to be a comms officer. I don't know how to do the web development side, because the web team were in there was stakeholder management in there. I didn't even know what stakeholder management was. Like now that I was oblivious. I'd worked in small agencies. This was so new. So immediately I'm thinking in my head, and I'm bringing up the part I was separated from my husband at this point, because on the one hand, it was a temporary contract.
Yes.
I'd moved back into what was our old family home, and we'd rented it out while we were up in Stonehaven. I was out back at home and back in my family home. So very acrimonious divorce. It was a very difficult divorce. However, if I got this job, I would get up to a new band, and it was a significant pay increase.
Yep.
It meant I could afford the mortgage on my own without him controlling if he helped me or not and all that kind of stuff. I could get his name off the mortgage when we got divorced and take it on my own name, all this stuff. However, if I didn't get this job, I had no idea what I was going to do. I was going to lose my home. I was lose my home, and I would be back with my parents. I had briefly been back with my parents for like 3 months with the kids and I was just back in my home. So there was so much resting, like this job security, better paid, like control of like my future, can get divorced, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that was like just a wee bit of added pressure while I was also going through this whole restructure. And then and it's funny how things come around about it, because this other person had been in her role for 9 years in the organisation, 9 years. And I'm the newbie of just over a year. And it's ironic, because I then felt like I was in that same situation 9 years later when I was going through all those restructures again. And lo and behold, as it turned out, I had to fly down to London to do the interview in person, as if my first time meeting the director, first time meeting my new manager and everyone else. First time in London by myself, like ever anywhere. I'd never went anywhere myself. I'd always had parents, partner or children with me. I'd never travelled. So that was all big and scary. And again, I think I just walked in thinking, I need this job. And my wee dad, love him, right? But I don't know if it's very much a Glasgow thing, right? Very pragmatic, glass half empty kind of approach. So this whole process, I think I took about 4 or 5 months. It did, because it was January and I didn't find out I got the role till June. And my dad's going, Hen, you're not going to get that job. You may still accept it. Start looking for other jobs now, because this person's in London. They're in London for a start. So they've automatically that would be a preference for them. Your whole team's in London. You're on your own up in Glasgow. You're only there a year. You're not going to get it.
And so the optimism.
Oh, I always love him. I love my dad to bits, right? But it was just like, say it how it is. But then my mum's going, but no, Bobby, because why would he even let her apply for the role if she didn't have a chance? She must have a chance if they're letting her apply. And my dad's going, well, they can't not say no to her, so they have to let her apply. And I'm going, but I'm under contract. They could just let my contract run out and not renew it. I'm not permanent there now. Yeah. So there's a wee bit in the back of my head going, I have a chance now. So I went down and again, my team were so lovely that initially hired me, because they were really annoyed. I had to learn, have you ever heard of is it the STAR technique when you're doing competency goals and all that jazz? No idea. And I'm like, what do you mean? And one of my teammates would literally be coaching me, like, and he would just like kind of peer over the bar thing of the open plan office. Julie, if you were in this situation and this happened, what would you do? And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know.
Yeah.
And stuff. And what interview questions I get asked. So they were kind of coaching me to help me with the interview.
Yeah.
And I flew down to London, didn't find out that day, had to then fly home. And I get told over a video call the next day, but I was already starting to hear that some people were getting told they hadn't got it. They were getting clearing their desk straight away and escorted off the building and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm starting to get phone calls going, they're not in, they're out. And I'm like, oh, so, and I didn't find out until like I was one of the last to find out that I'd got it and stuff. And then when I went into the room at that point, everyone was in the same floor. The organisation was smaller. And found out I'd got it, then had to go straight into a team meeting with everyone, walked out the door, and of course my old director and my team are like that, well, did you get it across the whole floor? Did you get it? And I just kind of burst out crying going, I did. And he's like, right, to the pub. And we just went to the pub.
I thought you were saying right back to work.
No, he was like that, no, pub.
Yeah.
The Pot Still in Glasgow. We ended up in the Pot Still, and he just got me a double, and he just sat it in front of me, and he went, "You deserve this. You need this." And I was like, "I do." But I think like all those years later, when I then seen the organisation grow, my team grew, but then started doing the restructures. I think in the back of my mind and why I thought I'm going to go freelance was I'm thinking I'm now 9-10 years in. I'm now that person who's been here a while. They know me, but there's always that shiny new thing walking in the door. They might appeal more. It's my time to go. And I think that's when I decided I need to actively start building something in case it happens. And I think that's probably like a bit like yourself. Once it happened, third time, you're like...
It was kind of, so the last job that I was in before I went freelance was a new company. Like it was a new start. And unfortunately, like it didn't work out. And I kind of saw stuff happening and I was like, it was unfortunate. We had a great team and again, there was loads of great ideas, but I knew that I was going to be one of the first ones to go when it kind of had happened. So when it did inevitably happen, and like you said, it was like an early gift, Christmas gift for me. It was like, got a matter of how many days. And I was like, shit. And that following year, I was getting married as well. So I was like, what am I going to do? So I was looking for jobs. And I'd applied for jobs, I had interviewed for jobs, and I remember at the time there was one of the jobs I applied for, and I till this day I'd never heard back from them, and I was just like, well, the interview went well, I thought, but they never ever got back in touch with me. But I remember at the time just thinking, do you know what, I'm only applying for this job because I need a job. And I remember thinking, I'm going to get itchy feet here. I know I'm going to get bored. It wasn't something that I felt passionate about, but I'd made it to that stage. And I remember there was another job that I really, really wanted. And I got the interview. Unfortunately, well, I say unfortunately, but I never got the job. And then I was like, do you know what? These things happen. And I always like, what's for you won't go by you. And I'm a strong believer in that. So at that time, I was like, right, how the hell am I going to navigate this? Because this was sort of like November time, and one of my best pals, she went freelance during lockdown, and she was like, just give it a go. I've done it. I've got contacts that I can get you in touch with. And I was like, okay. Again, it was just that feeling of being burnt before. And I'm like, well, I might have more security doing this. And so I was like, right, I'll do it. And I remember saying to my husband, or he was my boyfriend at the time, whatever, I remember saying, this is what I'm thinking. And then he was like, cool, like, we'll do it. And like, bless him, he was like, I'll support you. I'll be able to pay the bills if it's not going to work out and stuff. And I was like, I know, thank you. I love you. But I'm too stubborn as well. I've worked since I was like 15. I was like, I will be able to I will make this happen.
Yeah.
So it was nice having his support. Like it was like, that was a nice safety net, but I never wanted to rely on him financially that way. I was like, no, it will be me that does this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, well, I'm going to use December to sort of build up my portfolio, build a website, get myself like out there, get some content ideas, start like reaching out to folk. And that's what I started doing. And I was like, I'm going to launch this in January and make this like new year, new me sort of thing. So yeah, I did all the things that I was saying. And I also wanted to spend time with family because I was burnt out as well. I was just a bit like feeling just not that motivated or inspired because I wasn't getting the jobs and I wasn't really like, I was like, do I even want to be a graphic designer anymore? Like it genuinely was in it. So then, inevitably I was like, right, I'm going to put this out there. And I reconnected with who I sort of mentioned before, like the previous people that I worked with, my old managers, and I absolutely love them for this as well. I actually have managed to get quite a few jobs through them because they've moved off in different places as well.
Good.
And I remember one of my contacts, Jo, who I absolutely love to bits, she was like, when I texted in the group chat, just being like, by the way, I'm going freelance. And she was like, I cannot wait to work with you again. And I was it's one of my clients that I still to this day work with. And I absolutely will never forget that. I was just like, I really appreciate it. And they've all been really supportive. I've had other work through that same group of people that I've worked with previously, and it's all just really appreciated. So that kind of set me up. Like, I got these jobs coming through and I was like, wow. And then LinkedIn has been my absolute, like, I know a lot of people say, like, have mixed opinions on LinkedIn, but I cannot, like, fault it in terms of being able to put yourself out there. And I remember when I announced I was going freelance, I think my algorithm changed really quickly to start focusing on jobs and people that way. I didn't notice that.
Really? It's
I had
interesting.
people like sliding into my DMs being like, hi Ross, great to see you going freelance if you need any help and that kind of thing. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. And then again, it was all about like relationships and network and building my network and that as well, which I'd never really done before because I'd been in a job. And
Yeah.
I know, me being an extrovert, it was actually quite exciting to be like, oh, I've got all these like networking things to go out to and like start speaking to people and put myself out there. So yeah, through LinkedIn, I managed to get connections who then introduced me to their clients, and it's just kind of worked. I don't know, it all seems to have clicked in place. So it's kind of set me up, being able to build retainer clients and that as well, just from making these contacts and working with
And I
old
think,
managers and stuff.
yeah, and I think it
Yeah.
just takes one, doesn't it? It's like
Mhm.
often you can feel quite despondent and you feel really quite down about it. And then it's just like that, your old colleague Jo, like just saying,
Yeah.
can we work with you? And even her just saying that probably just like absolutely gave you the boost. Like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
needed to give you the courage to like go, absolutely, yeah, I'm all in, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And it is funny how you do need to just get that little glimpse of hope, and probably more so than you ever got in the whole time you were trying to do the job search. And I mean, actually getting to interviewing and they don't even respond after the interview, it's just
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
impolite, just bad form, and it's just really crappy. And it's unfortunately stuff that happens all the time.
Posting.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and then you don't get the next role. And again, it's like almost like you get the best parts now. You actually get to still work with people you loved working with
Yeah.
before, but now you get to work with all these other people as well. And there's a bit about being in control. I don't love to say no, but I actually love being able to say no.
Yeah. Yeah. Or
Is I think I love the most.
it's like, but again, it's like you do it for the right reasons. Like, I remember as well when I started out, I did undersell myself in terms of how much I was
Mhm.
charging per day, per hour, whatever project
We
cost.
all do that. I did that too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's embarrassing what I was charging. And then but then it's funny at that time because I was like, I don't even think I'm the most expensive here.
Mhm.
There's
Yep.
people saying to me, I can't afford you. And I was like, but very quickly you learn to sieve out the people who you will and won't work
Oh
with
yes. Yeah.
your own value, which I've noticed, and people who will understand your value, which makes a change. But I took on like smaller jobs that were lower value to begin with, which
Mhm.
again, I was like, is it a loss leader? But now, like you're saying, like it is good to have like a bit of control to be able to say it's not for me, but I know somebody else who might take it on. It's also like nice to be able to say it's not my skill set, so I know somebody else who can do it. And I think that's where I really appreciated being able to build my network of other graphic designers, where I'm like, I know that I'm not skilled in like motion graphics. I can do very basic stuff, but I would never
Mhm.
want to, like, this is my thing. So I'd quite
Yeah.
happy then give it to somebody in my network. Do you know what I mean? It's just things. It's a great feeling as well, being able to find the right people for the right job.
It is because they then still keep you in mind, because although you've not been the right designer, you still help them find the designer they need.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
what I find interesting is some graphic designers, like for example, if I went to business networking events and there was another
mhm,
designer there, you can see them being quite antsy and kind of
yeah,
like avoid me. And I find that, and like you're an extrovert, I'm very much an introvert. In person networking things is scary. It's partly one of the reasons why it took me so long to come along to yours. It is quite frightening walking in, you don't know anyone. And
yeah,
now I knew Chloe was going to go in, and I knew Chloe, so I was like, it's fine, there's one person there I know I can just
yeah,
beeline for her. And I did bump into Greg like at a different event before, so that's how he's like, look, come along, it's absolutely no
uh-huh,
bother, we'll put you somebody you know. And I'm like, okay, I'll come.
yeah,
So for an introvert, but what I find particularly with designers is they can be your greatest allies. They don't need to be your enemy. And again, I'm saying this as a very much seasoned older designer who's been in this industry decades. You do get some designers who are very precious,
Mm.
and very, and I find those are the ones who are insecure about their own skills as a designer, and it makes them feel better to put you down. However, I am absolutely love making friends with our designers because I love getting geeky about talking about design stuff and like all the troubles we have is I love meeting another designer, and I'd started actually purposely going up to them and introduce myself saying, hi, I hear you do the same as I do. So I'd love to meet you for a coffee, whatever, have a chat. So I want them to know I'm not going to fight them for the same jobs. And I kind of have to explain to people, you could put 6 designers in a line who all have the same skill set and experience and abilities. And a client is going to naturally gravitate towards one over the others. And it could be personality, it could just be likability. It's just something about them. They think that's my people. And I think about the clients I have. I post a lot on social media about my dogs. I don't post my children. My children are now grown up. They're not even on socials at all. They're very private people, and there's very much family reasons why I don't share them. But I know on socials you have to share a bit about your private life so people feel like they know you. My dogs are very cute, and my daughter's cats are very cute. They are
Yeah.
prime to get shared online. Most of my clients have dogs now,
Yeah.
and it just naturally ends up that way. I've designed dog food branding, dog behaviour specialists now, all sorts of doggy stuff because they know I love my dogs and think, well, she's going to be a designer for me because
She'll know it.
she'll know it. So you do find that way, but it's interesting you're saying, because obviously we'll talk a bit about how you and Greg formed
Yeah.
how the SCN, isn't it? SCN?
SEN, Scottish Creative Network, yeah.
Yes. So how did that all come about? Was that when you started freelancing, and how
Yeah.
long were you on Greg actually?
Well, I'll tell the story of how we met as well. But yeah, it is like just from what you were saying there as well, though, like there's no point in being like hostile towards other graphic designers or standoffish towards other graphic designers. Like just this morning, I have been subbing for work that myself and somebody else can't take on at the moment. And that's
Yeah.
the type of thing where you're just like, I need you guys. Like I have
Yeah.
your back, you have mine. I need to also have annual leave. So I need people to
Yes.
trust people with my clients as well. So I'm very happy to say you've got 2 weeks with them, but I'm coming back. Do you know, there was a project I had been given that I was freaking out about because it was out of my it was too much, the scope for it. And I remember speaking to two freelancers in my network and I was just like, am I overthinking this? What am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? And they were like, Ross, you're totally fine. Like and just that 2 minute conversation I had, I was like, thank you for
Yeah.
that. So
You need that. You
yeah,
need, and I really miss not having my design team. My design team, I
yeah,
loved, and I
yeah.
miss not having them to bounce off. We'd literally walk out of a team meeting and Brian would be like, "What the fuck was that all about?" Because there was so
Yeah,
many acronyms and technical terms getting bandied about
the
that we
jargon.
did not understand,
Yeah,
and to actually just have them to just go, "That's good. I wasn't the only person in the room that had no bloody
yeah.
clue."
So yeah, and it's finding your tribe, and that. So yeah, I think that's leads us, I suppose, into
Yeah.
Scottish Creative Network and how that came about. And yeah, so Scottish Creative Network is a monthly networking group that has been about since 2009, which Greg Middlemess, who is a freelance graphic designer, and he's not videographer, photographer. He set that up back in 2009 because he was looking for other photographers to connect with, and he was also looking for like models or locations to work with. So he set up SCN, and it was purely for photographers, and he found his tribe with that.
Yeah.
And he had numerous months, years of really successful events. But with him traveling a lot with work and then the lockdown, it just fizzled out. So
Yeah.
SCN kind of died to death. And I think it was within like my sort of first year of freelancing, I knew, because me being again an extrovert that I am, I hate working from home by myself all the time. And I was like, when I can afford it, when I know that I've got a space that's available, I will find a co-working space to go to. So I found the social hub in the city centre of Glasgow, and I was like, I'll wait till I'm married, and then that will be my next business, my next move. And it has been one of the best things that I've ever done for like my business and for working for myself, because if you know the social hub, it does what it says on the tin.
It's
And
amazing.
I'm not being paid to say this. But it has been incredible for everything, like the events that they put on, the community that they've built, like everything within it, I just think works so well. So Greg and I met there. We did know of each other, but I had never sort of officially met him. And when Greg had been made redundant from his job, again, that scary, he knew that I'd been freelancing for a few months at that point, and he reached out to me on Instagram and was like, is there any like events that you go to, or is there any way that we could catch up and go to any events? And I was like, yeah, of course. So we went to a couple of business networking events together, and I got to know Greg a wee bit, and then he told me that he was sort of like, he had a space at the social hub. So when I inquired and got a space, him and I started connecting. And then it was a few months on, he was like, I want to bring back SEN. And he told me about it. And he was like, it was me and my friends that had it. And he was like, I'm going to do it. So it was, the first one was in December 24, and it was really successful. It was free at that time. There was about 70 people that turned up. And at the time as well, there wasn't really like a massive structure to it. Greg just wanted people in the room who were creative. And he also opened it up to anyone who was creative. He was just like, I want it to be a bigger event than just photographers. And I went to the first event, and like that, I was speaking to other graphic designers, marketers, photographers, all sorts of people. And I was like, this is really cool, like having this group. And it was so diverse as well. There was like students, and there was like people who were like higher up their career, and it was really, really good to see. So he got that buzz from that and was like, I'm going to try and keep this a sort of monthly thing. And I was like looking from the sidelines, like, I want to be a part of that. I need something to do. And so the next one was in January, and he'd set it up. And again, I was sort of like having ideas, and I was kind of saying, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And at the time, I couldn't go to that one in January, but I saw the photos and everything, and I was like, right. And Greg and I, being both freelance as well, and him being a photographer, I was like, you and I are going to have a project together at some point. I don't know what it'll be or when it'll be, but we will naturally work together. And we have like done commercial work together. But I remember one time Greg sat with me and he was like, do you want this to be our baby? Do you want to like do SDN with me? And I was like, yeah, okay. So yeah, the first one was like February, and where we did it together, and we did like bingo, human bingo, where it was like, write down the people you want to meet and then go out and meet them and then score it off a card. And it's funny because my mum was feeding me a lot of ideas from like her doing sort of like meetings like that. So she was giving me ideas, and I was like, we can make something of this. Like we'll start doing or meet like a big pool of people, and it's like, how can we get people to connect that's not the traditional business networking ways? And don't get me wrong, business networking works a treat. Like some of them are brilliant at what they do. They've got great structures, great speakers. But we were like, we need something for creative people. We need something where people will meet their tribe. They will bounce off each other, share, collaborate together, sub-work out to each other. You just don't know. There might be jobs there from CEOs who have their own agencies. So we were like, we need something there. And we also want it to be no stuffiness, no egos, and people will connect over some sort of activity that will put everybody on a level playing field. So we called it Creative Chaos, and that came about because the first event where we sat back and we were like, this is good, this is working, was where we played beer pong, which was our take on beer pong. And if you got the ball in your opponent's cup, there was like little cards to sort of say what was a book that inspired you. And it was just getting people connecting that way. But it was chaos. There was everywhere and people shouting. So it was great fun. And then ever since then, we were like, right, how are we going to up this each time and play a different game or do some sort of activity that'll get people speaking? So we've done all sorts of things like quizzes, and we made our own deck of Cards Against Humanity called Cards Against Creatives. And the event that you were at was in collaboration with Fuck Up Nights, which is another event in Glasgow. And we did Play Your Fuck Ups Right, where we rated different scenarios.
Oh, that was so funny. Of when things went wrong, and there was some absolute crackers in there. And they were all anonymous, so people could just submit them anonymously and not own up to their biggest fuck ups, which is good. I did enjoy my night, and I actually stayed right to the end, which is unheard of for me. And I think as an introvert, I always go with the thinking, right, if I just speak to two people, then it's been that I don't know already, it's been a success. And it was my first time meeting yourself. You and I had sat and had a good chat for 10-15 minutes, and obviously I told you like that, right, okay, I'm starting a podcast, will you please come on? You're like, yeah, absolutely. And I'm like, yay, thank you, you're my friend already. And you, Chloe, but there was actually a couple of people there who I didn't know were going that ended up at it as well. So had chats with them, and I met, really interestingly, a guy who's a school teacher.
Yes.
Now went part-time and he started freelancing as a graphic designer. He's a technical teacher, isn't he?
Yeah.
But he's
Yeah.
now went into, and he was so lovely and we had
Yeah.
such a good chat and stuff like that. And weirdly, he went to the same school as me. We're like
Oh, there you go.
years apart. And he lived in the next street to me, and I'm like, oh, this is just like one of those weird things. I'm just like, how old are you? Oh, it's okay, you won't know me, that's fine.
But that's
But yeah,
that's the thing. It's like we can say we are proud of like the sort of community that we've got there. Like, and I
yeah.
love seeing the diversity of all the different, like, there's students who I am super inspired by who are coming to these events, because I think when I was a student, I was not out networking, and I think I don't know why it just wasn't ever on my radar to do. It wasn't ever something I thought of doing. But seeing students going there and meeting with like industry professionals and saying like outright, I'm looking for internships, I'm like, on yourself, go for it, like do it.
My goodness, yes. And I think, and again, we're going to mention Morgan. We can't not mention Morgan, who is the
Exactly.
logo lassie, who I think is just one of the most inspiring young designers I've ever come
Yeah.
across. And I tell her all the time, I feel like her mum, and I'm just like, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of the designer you are. And she's like, thanks. And because when you see somebody who's got that drive, that passion, and she's just put herself out there and
Yeah.
she's built up her social media, posting passion projects while she's at uni. She's now working with amazing clients now. So she's actually built a proper freelance business while she's at uni. She's won awards. She's up for Young Scottish Designer of the Year this year as well. She's won awards in New York. And then recently she hosted her own event, Doorways, which was purposely for students finding a way in industry. And I met Rachel at it, who was speaking. And again, she was my very first guest on podcast, and her story is so inspirational as well. But and again, it's like that, and we'll just touch briefly that going into an agency or a job is not the only path, which is often what universities and colleges and lecturers still push at you that you need to do. I think it's similar to my son's left school now, but he kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed to go into college or uni, and it was not his path.
Yeah.
And I think for young creatives, they need to know that this freelance world is a whole world they could tap into.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to just be get a job in an agency.
Well, that's exactly, like, I never ever put freelance on my radar as being like postgraduate and going straight in being freelance. But like Chloe, who we've mentioned, the chatty freelancer, she went straight into doing that. And I guess it's like, obviously you need to be prepared, you need to know your worth, have a bit of industry experience or like internships as well is definitely beneficial. But I think, going like into the agency or straight into in-house, it's not the be all and end all. Like, give freelance a go if you're maybe perhaps looking for a job as a stopgap, perhaps, or if it works out for you, go for it, because there's a lot of agencies out there that are just using freelancers and they don't have an in-house team. They'll just use when they need, which works for them, and it could work out really well in anyone's favor. So yeah.
And that's the thing. Freelance isn't just finding your own clients and working with individual businesses. It can also be freelancing for other design agencies. There's two different paths you can do with freelance, which is amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and chat today. Where can people find you and connect with you and get to know you more?
Yeah, I am on Instagram as Grubb Creative, and I'm on LinkedIn, as I mentioned, Ross Grubb. And if you want to get involved with SEN, then it's SEN, Scottish Creative Network, on Instagram or on LinkedIn. And yeah, we love meeting new people. So come along to the event, get in touch with us. And yeah, it'll be good to meet you at some point.
I highly recommend it. As an introvert, normal networking, I loved the event and I will be coming back. So
thank you. I look forward to meeting you again, seeing you.
Love to hear from you. You can send me a message, leave me a comment if you're watching on YouTube, or share your own story with me. Because honestly, the more we talk about this stuff, the more we realise so many of us are dealing with the exact same things, the same experiences, the same situations, and can really help each other by talking more openly about it. And if you want a space to chat with other creatives who get it, I've got a community called The Creative Room. It's a really supportive space. We talk about the struggles, the rants, the clients, creating content, marketing yourself, all the other stuff that comes with running a creative business or working in this industry. I'll leave the link in the show notes if you fancy joining us, and I'll catch you in the next one.